Republicans have been very kind to me from the beginning. Even from the beginning when Bobby was running as a Democrat, they weren't mean.
No.
And they never have been.
No.
And I can't say that for the Democrats.
I agree.
And it's
sad because it's not the Democrats we grew up with.
Right. Yeah.
And that's the difference that people don't, I think, see. They're like, why did you turn on the Democrats? Well, first of all, I didn't. Like I said, we voted for the same person. But I'm not going to pretend I don't notice how different they are.
Yeah.
How mean they've become.
Yeah, he listened.
I think he actually wants more people around him for a stimulating conversation.
Yeah.
I was very surprised at, and mentioned it again, they hated me for it, that as opposed to so many important people I've met who, when you talk to them, you don't feel like they're really listening. They're kind of like, you know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
And then when they answer you, it doesn't quite track, you know?
They're just waiting for their turn to talk.
Yeah.
Bill Maher and Cheryl Hines teamed up to take aim at the Democratic Party, and the outcome was both surprising and unexpectedly funny. Two longtime Democratic supporters openly broke down how the party has unraveled in recent years, especially as Donald Trump's popularity continues to rise. They revealed why they've grown disillusioned with a political home that once felt like a beacon of hope, but now seems almost unrecognizable. Let's dive into what they had to say.
The thing about Trump, he really, really does not like war.
Which I love that about him.
I kind of do, because I don't want war either, and most of them are unnecessary.
I agree.
I mean, he took a long time when I had that dinner with him talking about the pictures he sees coming from Ukraine, the stuff that doesn't get out on the news. It's like raw footage of bodies in the field.
Yes.
And you could tell it really moved him. It's like, I do not want to see this, and I'm the kind of guy who can fix this.
It's genuinely fascinating to see Cheryl Hines and Bill Maher openly admit that there are actually things they appreciate about Donald Trump. Coming from two personalities who once delivered nonstop, no-mercy criticism of him, especially Maher, this shift feels dramatic. For years, Maher was the go-to voice for sharp, relentless jabs at Trump and the Republican Party. But now, a more reflective version of Maher has emerged, disrupting the familiar script. This new perspective has attracted an unexpected wave of supporters while, at the same time, distancing some of his oldest allies. Even many within his own party don't quite know how to interpret it. Some say Maher is simply fed up with the Democrats' growing inconsistencies. Others believe he softened after that much-talked-about dinner he shared with Trump. Whatever the real reason, one thing is clear. The shift is real, unmistakable, and sparking more conversation than anything Maher said during his years of predictable, party-line commentary.
He's never not going to be Trump. So, of course, he's like, I solved 9 wars. And, you know, okay, even if it's half that, it's still good that we're solving them and not starting them.
That's the thing that I find that I really like about President Trump when he talks about wars and talks about Ukraine. And he talks about Ukraine and Russia, and he will say they're losing people on both sides.
Donald Trump has consistently emphasized that he has no interest in dragging the U.S. into endless wars, and he has made ending the conflict in Ukraine one of his top priorities. Whether you agree with his approach or not, his tactics are clearly shifting the landscape. Trump has repeatedly insisted that the war must end, and Maher pointed out that his strategy stands in stark contrast to Biden's. That contrast alone signals a notable change in momentum. Regardless of how one views Trump personally, it's hard to ignore that this development mirrors what President Biden spent years trying, but ultimately failed to achieve. While Biden pursued diplomatic solutions that never fully materialized, Trump's unconventional pressure tactics appear to be moving the situation in a new direction. For Trump, this could become a significant political victory with far-reaching global implications.
Somebody was just asking me about when I met him, what surprised me the most, and I said I was surprised that he really likes to listen to people. He's very curious and what
they
you have to say.
hated when I said that. Again, because I'm just telling you what happened. What, should I lie?
I guess so. I guess
Right.
that's
He
what they
kicked
want.
me in the balls
Yeah.
under the table. And then
Like I knew he would.
He threw the spaghetti against the wall when I raised the subject of tariffs. No. No.
You can already imagine the outrage among some Democrats over Bill Maher's recent remarks about Donald Trump. For years, Maher was expected to stick to the familiar party line, delivering relentless criticism. But the moment he expressed even a hint of respect, or acknowledged that Trump can, at times, be surprisingly personable, everything shifted. Cheryl Hines has witnessed that side of Trump herself, and her experience only reinforces what many refuse to admit. The expectation was that Maher, after meeting Trump in person, would return with fresh ammunition, sharper insults, and renewed outrage. Instead, he came back with nuance, and that alone has sent some of his own supporters into a tailspin. What this really reveals is a deeper mindset. Many people dislike Trump not because they've met him or formed their own opinions, but because they were told to hate him. And Maher just disrupted that script. He listened and it changed everything.
He listened.
Yeah. I think he actually wants more people around him for stimulating conversation.
Yeah.
I was very surprised at, and mentioned it again, they hated me for it, that as opposed to so many important people I've met who, when you talk to them, you don't feel like they're really listening. They're kind of like, you know what I mean? And then when they answer you, it doesn't quite track, you know?
They're just waiting for their turn to talk.
Yeah.
This moment is both hilarious and eye-opening. We all know politicians often enter interviews armed with pre-planned talking points, rehearsed lines, and carefully crafted narratives, as if they're reading from an invisible script hovering just above the camera. Even when interviewers try to catch them off guard with unexpected or challenging questions, most refuse to budge. They stick to their talking points with robotic determination, repeating the same phrases over and over, even when their answers no longer match the question being asked. It creates these awkward, almost surreal moments where the disconnect is visible in real time. The interviewer asks something direct and reasonable, and the politician responds with something entirely unrelated, but still on message. That's why this particular instance stands out. It highlights just how conditioned many politicians have become, and how genuinely refreshing it is when someone finally breaks out of the script.
Just on this different level. I mean, these are show people too. I've had that. But I didn't get that with him at all.
No.
I got a guy who looked in my eye, was listening to what I said, waited until I finished, even when it was contradictory, when it was he never got blustery or mad about it. You know, he said some things that I don't agree with and some things that I think are just, you know, plainly not right, like, you know, third term. Yeah, I think you could do it. I'm having people look into it. No, you can't do it. and you can have people look into it from now until the end of time. It's like 12 words in the Constitution. You can't do it.
His also explains why KLA Harris so often relied on broad, vague answers instead of concrete specifics. Even when a question demanded clarity, she frequently drifted into those now famous word salads, long, winding sentences that sounded polished but ultimately conveyed very little. Watching her interviews, it often felt as though she wasn't truly listening to the question being asked. Instead, she seemed focused on steering every response back toward her rehearsed talking points, even when they didn't fit the moment. That constant retreat into scripted answers created an unmistakable sense of detachment, almost as if she were waiting for the safe questions to return so she could slip back into her comfort zone. When politicians operate this way, prioritizing the script over genuine engagement, it becomes painfully obvious. Harris's interviews became a textbook example of how sticking too rigidly to prepared lines can leave viewers feeling confused, unconvinced, and disconnected.
But he didn't get mad.
Right.
And then I also made the point that, you know, I went home that night and I was getting into bed in 60 Minutes. I taped it. And there he is on 60 Minutes and he's like ranting and raving. I'm like, who's this guy?
Yeah.
This is not the guy I met.
Yeah.
And so I'm just the reporter here. I'm just telling you.
This was my experience.
Remember, these aren't casual observers or neutral commentators. These are lifelong, hardcore Democrats who suddenly have something positive to say about their fiercest political opponent, Donald Trump. That alone is enough to send shockwaves through certain corners of the left. For years, the expectation has been clear. Democrats must remain united in their disdain for Trump. No exceptions, no nuance, no independent thought. So when figures like Bill Maher and Cheryl Hines break from that script and admit that Trump has redeeming qualities or moments worth acknowledging, it infuriates some Democrats and left-leaning media outlets. It disrupts the narrative they've worked so hard to maintain. They don't want anyone, even their own, expressing anything other than anger or outrage toward Trump. The very idea that a Democrat could genuinely appreciate something about him, even mildly, feels like a betrayal. That's why this moment is so revealing. It exposes just how rigid and emotionally charged the political expectations have become.
Republicans have been very kind to me from the beginning. Even from the beginning when Bobby was running as a Democrat, they weren't mean.
No.
And they never have been.
No.
And I can't say that for the Democrats.
I agree.
And it's
sad because it's not the Democrats we grew up with.
Right. Yeah.
And that's the difference that people don't, I think, see. They're like, why did you turn on the Democrats? Well, first of all, I didn't. Like I said, we voted for the same person. But I'm not going to pretend I don't notice how different they are.
Yeah.
How mean they've been.
For years, Republicans were often portrayed as the mean, cold, uncompromising side of American politics. But now, Bill Maher and Cheryl Hines are flipping that narrative, sharing their personal experiences and observations to set the record straight. It's becoming increasingly clear that the Democratic Party can be just as harsh, sometimes even harsher, especially toward anyone who dares to voice a differing opinion. The moment you step out of line or express a view that doesn't perfectly align with the accepted script, they don't just debate you, they come after you. Labels, attacks, and in many cases attempts at cancellation quickly follow. The message is unmistakable: agree completely, or face the consequences. Maher and Hines highlighting the shift is significant because it exposes a truth many have sensed but were afraid to say aloud. The Democrats aren't always the compassionate side. At times, they can be downright ruthless.
Democrats have been having a lot of donor retreats lately where liberal strategists hold idea-thons, where they try to figure out why they keep losing elections. You know, apart from using words like idea-thon. And now one idea that's getting a lot of attention is the Dems need to find their Joe Rogan, a liberal Joe Rogan, because that's why Kamala lost. Republicans have a podcast.
That's true. But the Democrats don't just need their own version of Joe Rogan. They also desperately need their own version of Donald Trump. Someone sincere, brutally honest, unafraid to speak plainly, and bold enough to stand up to the ever-growing woke crowd. Someone willing to push back against the party's drift towards socialist-leaning policies without flinching. What the Democrats lack right now is a figure with real backbone, someone who can take criticism, own their imperfections, and refuse to be molded by the pressure to conform to every new ideological trend. They need leaders who aren't terrified of upsetting Twitter, who won't hide behind scripted talking points, and who can inspire confidence simply by being real. Maher's point is simple. The party doesn't just need fresh voices. They need strong, grounded personalities willing to challenge their own side when necessary. Only then can they hope to regain credibility.
You could consider this. Instead of conjuring up a new Joe Rogan, ask yourself why you lost the old one. Because he used to be on your side. He smokes pot on the air. I don't think he's that much of a far-right ideologue. I don't think his mind is completely inflexible. His neck, yes. But not his mind. And he's expressed unease with some things Trump is doing, as has a certain disgruntled former employee named Elon Musk, who, like Joe, is another guy who 5 years ago was thought of as a liberal, but got driven into the other camp by bad attitudes and bad ideas.
And this is exactly the kind of flawed thinking that's driving figures like Cheryl Hines and Robert F. Kennedy away from the liberal fold. Increasingly, many Democrats report feeling disconnected from the direction of their own party, not because of a single issue, but because the overall policies, ideologies, and priorities no longer resonate, or worse, feel fundamentally misguided. There's a growing sense that the party has become out of touch with reality, prioritizing ideological purity over practical solutions, and punishing anyone who dares to question the prevailing narrative. Unfortunately, despite this exodus, there seems to be little willingness within the party to reflect or course correct. Change is resisted, either out of stubbornness or fear of losing control, leaving longtime supporters frustrated and disillusioned. This inability to adapt or admit missteps is exactly what drives talented, thoughtful voices away, sending a serious warning. If the party cannot evolve, more allies will continue seeking alternatives elsewhere. And that brings us to the end of today's video. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.